Hello everyone! Today we are going to be talking about cover crops and nitrogen fixing plants. Today is December 7th and we are, even though it doesn't feel like we're going into winter today because it's pretty sunny, got my short sleeve shirt on and it's only like 9 in the morning, we are going into winter. And when we go into winter, it gets cold. There's not as much sun throughout the day. Sometimes it's really rainy, and plants don't love to grow in the winter. So a lot of the times, winter is when I let all the soil in the area go fallow. Now, what does that word mean? Fallow is just a fancy term that means I'm letting the soil rest. I'm not going to try and grow anything in it because nothing wants to grow in it at this time, except for a few plants. So those plants that we have that are perennial, those that grow year after year after year, the same plant grows year after year, like a tree, or our pride of Madeiras, I'm looking around here, or our sweet pea bushes, those are all going to grow year after year. They're fine with the winter. They sometimes just go dormant, which kind of is like hibernating for a plant. They put most of their energy into keeping their root system strong, and they lose their leaves and they don't do much else. You're not really going to get fruit, right? But our annual plants that you plant from seed and it grows for a season and then it gives you seeds and it dies. And then next year you grow it and it dies, right? Like tomatoes, each year we put in new tomato plants. Those are called annuals. Now those plants aren't really going to be growing very nicely right now in the almost winter as I'm like baking in the sun. Anyways, so this is the perfect time to be putting nutrients into the soil rather than taking them out. So one of the best ways to put nutrients into the soil is through cover cropping. Now, a cover crop are plants that are happily going to grow in this colder weather, like peas and beans, and they also put nutrients into the soil. So a cover crop does two main things. Covers the soil, protects that soil from the cold, from too much rain, from erosion or runoff. If it's raining too much, then the rain might take the soil with it, run it down the hill, which we don't want. We want to keep our soil. So it does that, covers, it's called cover crop, covers the soil, keeps it protected. And the second biggest thing it does is to provide nutrients to the soil. Now, most of them are going to be nitrogen-fixing plants. And this plant works with a special bacteria in its root system called a rhizobia. That's a fancy word for rhizome, which is root system, and bia is bacteria, right? Rhizobia is this root bacteria, and it lives in the roots of some plants. And what it can do, in exchange for a little bit of food from the plant, it can turn nitrogen that's either in the air or in the soil that isn't in its usable form, just like wheat. You can't eat flour, you have to cook it into bread to eat it. So it turns that basically flour, right, that nitrogen that can't be used yet, and it turns it into nitrogen that can be used by the plant, which is really, really cool. Nitrogen is arguably the most important nutrient for a plant. I see a room 7 walking by, just in case you're wondering what I'm all distracted by or what that noise is. It's room 7. Basically, plants need nitrogen to build their cell walls, to grow tall, to grow leaves for photosynthesis, and to make their roots strong. So this really, really cool relationship between a plant and a bacteria in its root system to get all this nitrogen that the plant needs. Now, another cool thing is that plants aren't selfish. This plant says, yes, I'll take some of that nitrogen, but there's much more than I could use. And it shares, it gives, it fixes it all. Fixing, remember, doesn't mean like taping, putting in, puts it all into the soil around it. So come springtime, when we do plant that tomato or we do plant that, that cucumber, that cucumber's like, look at all this nitrogen, and it's having a party, which is so cool. So the plant shares. We love it. We love sharing. So the same family that donated their extra garlic that we planted, which I actually planted earlier today, but you're gonna see it before you've seen that video already before you've seen this one, also gave us a bunch of cover crop seeds. So in this one, it looks like we've definitely got beans, peas, oh, and oats. So all of those are going to cover the soil really nicely, and they're going to, the peas and the beans are the plants that have that cool relationship, that symbiotic relationship where both of them are benefiting. Both the bacteria, the nitrogen fixing bacteria, and the plant have that relationship with the legumes, which are just another fancy word for beans. Let's see if we can do this. There's a bean, and a pea, and a pea. And then these are the oats. Oh my gosh, it's really tiny. Can you all see it? So what we're gonna do is I've got a little bucket with a little bit of water in it, and we're basically going to put some of that, it's an inoculant. So an inoculant is a powder, generally. Sometimes it's a liquid, or like a kind of like a watery substance that we're going to coat the seeds with. We're going to put that seed in that inoculant. And the inoculant in this case is that nitrogen fixing bacteria. So sometimes you just roll them in the powder, but then I get that powder, I feel like I waste it in that way. So I'm gonna dump, let's see if we can do this better. Dump all of these into this water. They also donated the legume inoculant. What did they called it the slurry method, which I like. So we're gonna dump it in. Looks like a, can we see? I don't know. It's like a really dark brown powder. Kind of looks like maybe, honestly, like dirt. Like really powdery dirt. And then, I've got my very fancy inoculant stirrer here. I'm gonna stir that into the water. Oop, doesn't want to. Maybe it looks like it's totally hydrophobic. I'm learning with you right now. I've never used this inoculant. I usually just put them into the ground. So the word, I just said a funny fancy word called hydrophobic. Hydro means water and phobic means fear of. I'm not saying this stuff is scared of the water, but it means that it doesn't like water. So it's not even sitting on the top. Or it's just sitting on the top. It's not even getting in there. All right, I'm gonna troubleshoot this and I'll get back. Figured it out. I did it completely wrong, but you know what? We live and we learn, and I've learned that this is not the right way to do it. They don't actually want this much water. They wanted less water. So we're just gonna do with it what we can, and we're gonna see if it works. I mean, the plants will grow. They'll still fix nitrogen, I think, because we've got really good soil here in the raised beds. So come with me as I go plant them in the raised beds in Circle 5.